So for those of you who are familiar with my channel, you know that I have a bunch of hobbies. I like to fix stuff, I like to build things and different stuff like that. But one of my biggest hobbies and big project that I have is my house, my home. And what I do is I'm really into home automation. So I made a couple other videos that you guys may have seen. It's been years ago about some of my home automation equipment that I have here at my house. And those show the system I put in when I built the house back in 2011, and that system is a system based on a technology called Insteon, and I had a hub that ran it all that was called a Universal Devices ISY-994. It ran Insteon network. It also communicated on Z-Wave and ran the old X10 network and stuff like that. And I had this kind of tricky system for communicating with my alarm panel via X10. But anyway, it all worked, and it all worked local with no cloud, and it worked pretty good. Well, something happened, and what happened is the Insteon hardware became unavailable. So what, yeah, I don't know if the company went out of business or what exactly happened, but you really can't get Insteon stuff anymore. So I was really kind of in a bind because I think I had one of my wall dimmers died or something. I guess I couldn't buy another one. So I had been looking a little bit at changing my home automation system away from Insteon to something different. But it was going to be a big job. I didn't really want to take it on. And I kind of used Insteon going out of business as my catalyst to switch over to a different home automation technology. And so I took the plunge, and I did it about a year or two ago. So I've got my house all converted over to the new stuff. And this video, I'm just going to show you some of the new stuff I put in and kind of explain to you what I migrated to away from the ISY hub and Insteon to the new system. And the new system I'm using is called Home Assistant. And I've avoided making a lot of really detailed videos about home automation, and I won't make this a detailed video about how to use Home Assistant either, because there's so many other videos out there on how to do everything, and I'm not an expert. But I learned enough to get everything to work for my house, and it works great, actually. So one of the big differences is all the dimmers that are in the house that used to be Insteon are now Wi-Fi. So what I went with, everything is Wi-Fi. So like right here, so this is one of my new dimmers, and you know, you can push it and it'll turn the light off, and you can tap it, it'll turn it back on, or you can use this up and down button to change the brightness and whatnot. So it works much the way the Insteon dimmers worked, except now they communicate over Wi-Fi. So what I ended up going with, these are made by Martin Jerry. They're kind of cheap. That was one of the best things about switching over to Wi-Fi, smart switches, and Home Assistant is everything's cheaper. So like an Insteon dimmer would have been $60 to do that, and that Wi-Fi dimmer over there I think was $20. So we're talking about a third of the price. Okay, so literally 1/3 of the price per device. So it's Christmas time here at my house right now. So, and on one of my other videos, I showed how I automated my Christmas trees and stuff like that. And I'll show you that too. In fact, let me go in here. So I got some little plug modules that are Wi-Fi, and I'll show you one of those. There's one of those right here. All right, so you can see this right here. This is one of the plug modules I've got. It's got a little button on the side where you can manually just override it and turn it on and off, or it'll get its commands from the hub and turn on and off on schedule or presence or whatever you want to program. So anyway, that was It was a big undertaking. I'll tell you that one of the things you have to have is you have to have a good, strong, reliable Wi-Fi backbone in your house, and I had that already. I was already to the point where I was sick and tired about people complaining about Wi-Fi, like my kids and my wife complained about Wi-Fi. So I already had a multiple access point, wired mesh network of that was super good and expensive, but it works really good. So I already had a really strong Wi-Fi that could handle a lot of devices because I've got like 40 of those wall switches in here now or something like that. But okay, so they operate on Wi-Fi. So the setup is a little more complicated. If you ever used Insteon before, each Insteon device had an address written on a little bitty label written on it. And you just use that address to program it into the ISY module. And actually it was real easy. This is harder. What you have to do with these is you have to assign them an IP address. So you got to go through some setup process with each device to assign it an IP address. You got to keep up with all those IP addresses, and then that IP address is its identity, if you will. So one of the reasons why I didn't really dive directly into Wi-Fi based smart components in the beginning when they first came out is because I didn't want to be connected to the cloud. I didn't want that cloud connection. There's all the horror stories about how, well, we had a cloud connected system and then the company went out of business and now it just doesn't even work anymore. So, and that's one of the things I liked about my ISY system is it was completely independent of the cloud. It ran on its own. It was all local. So what I discovered is a special firmware that can run on these smart switches called Tasmota. Okay, so if you're in the home automation and especially the home assistant world, that name will sound familiar to you, but it's a special operating system that runs on the little smart device that a lot of home automation enthusiasts actually install themselves. The Martin Jerry switches I bought already had it installed, so I didn't have to do that. I did have to do a little bit of a tricky hack to get those little smart plug modules like that Christmas tree's plugged into. I had to do a little hack to get Tasmota installed on those, but you want to talk about price. The on-off plug modules from Insteon, I think, were $60. They were $59.99. I think I got a pack of 4 of those smart plugs for, I think, $25 or $30. I mean, they're very cheap. So anyway, I bought several of those. So Tasmota is completely locally controlled, but it requires a little more effort to set it up. So each time you activate a device, you have to connect to it with your phone, connect it to your Wi-Fi, enter the password and everything. And then you have to assign an IP address, all this other stuff. Then you can enter it into Home Assistant. So I talked a little bit about Home Assistant a minute ago. That is the hub that is running everything is Home Assistant. So Home Assistant is actually an open source home automation operating system, if you will. I'm not an expert on it, so there's a lot out there if you're interested and you want to learn about it. But so the capabilities of Home Assistant are very powerful. So a lot of people run Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi single board computer, and I thought about doing that. I ended up running it on a PC, so I'll show you that. So when I first started toying with Home Assistant, I ran it on a virtual machine on the computer I have here at my house, just to kind of experiment with it and see how I liked it. And that's an easy way to kind of dip your toes into it, just run it in a virtual machine. But I actually have Home Assistant operating system running on a PC now. And it's been running for years and it runs great. So once I got the Insteon stuff replaced with Wi-Fi stuff, and I mean all the light dimmers, The next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to get it interfaced with my alarm system. So if you recall, if you watch one of my other videos, I used some, the Honeywell alarm system I've got has got, and this is one of the panels, the control keypads for the Honeywell alarm system. This has got the capability to send X10 commands, and I use that capability to have the alarm panel send some X10 commands to the ISY module to get some stuff done. So to access that Honeywell alarm panel, I actually found there's a company called Invisalink that makes a module. I think it was about $99 that I bought, that mounts in the alarm panel, and it communicates with Home Assistant. So it goes on your local area network also and can communicate with Home Assistant. That gives you access to all your zones, alarm status, all that kind of stuff. I'll show you that in a minute. So I accomplished the lighting, the light dimmers, the smart plugs, the interface with the alarm system, and those are the main things I had in my old system. And then the rest of it was accomplished via programming. Okay, I'm down here in my basement, and what I wanted to show you is this computer. So this is a network attached storage. I've had that for a long time. This is the computer that I bought to run Home Assistant on. And I bought this, this is an older PC. I bought it on eBay. It's an Intel i5, but it's one from like 5 years ago or 6 or 7 years ago maybe. But the good thing about Home Assistant is it doesn't need a real powerful computer. But it runs on a computer. And from a size comparison, that's the old ISY device. That was the module that ran the old Insteon system. So, I mean, it is bigger, okay? So, like I mentioned earlier, people do run Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi, but I wanted to run it on a computer just to have some additional capabilities. So, I'll show you in the back here. The only thing you really need connected to this computer is a power plug and an Ethernet wire. That's it. There's no other things that you need connected to your Home Assistant computer, which is kind of interesting. I have a monitor hooked to it just because I already had a monitor down here. You don't actually interface using this computer. You do all your interfacing using a browser. Now, while we're down here, also something I've changed is my security video cameras. So I used to have a Samsung surveillance DVR sitting right here on this shelf. So it's gone. Well, this actually takes the place of that too, because I converted all of my surveillance cameras over to IP cameras that are higher resolution, and they all run, and there's an NVR running inside Home Assistant that I'll show you. So instead of the old camera power supply, I now have all of the video cameras, and I rewired all of them. They were all coax. They were all the old coax Siamese cable that was power and coax. I rewired them all, pulled Cat5 to all of them, terminated them all at this patch panel, and then I've got a power over Ethernet switch right here that runs them, and then that blue wire uplinks it up to my network. All right, so here in this room, I'll just show you an example of one of the IP cameras I put in. Honestly, they look almost just like the traditional coax cameras, surveillance cameras I had there before. The ones I ended up going with were Amcrest. But yeah, I had to pull new Ethernet wire to each one of them, which was a big job, but it was worth it. So I did want to show you guys this. This is my alarm panel in the basement of my house, and here it is. And I wanted to show you this. This is the Invisalink module. So this is the module I told you I bought for around $100. It wires into the alarm system, and then as you see here, it hooks into your Ethernet network, and that allows communication with Home Assistant. Up here, I did rewire some of this. Inside this box is a couple of Shelly relays that I'm now using for the driveway sensor. If you saw my video before on how the driveway sensor is hooked up, that's been changed now to hook the input to a of the driveway sensor and the doorbell to a couple of Shelly modules, which lets me get that input into Home Assistant too. Okay, here's the interface that you get. So I'm on the local network, so I can actually, if you're on the LAN, you can use this address to get to it. So I've set this up, this dashboard, I guess is what it's called. So I've got one screen that has lighting on it, another has alarm, and so on and so forth. So if you take a look at this, here's all the different lights in my house. You can control them from here if you want to. You can see the little light bulb, like these spotlights are not at maximum brightness, and you can see that you can set the brightness whatever you want. That's why that's not showing as bright. So that's how that interface looks. This basement light right here, see it's grayed out right now because that one's not responding. So look, the Tasmota, Martin, Jerry, those dimmers are not perfect. Insteon wasn't either. This one probably needs to be rebooted or something. That happens sometimes. It doesn't happen often. Actually, it's been really reliable. I've had it a couple years now. It's been pretty reliable. All my floodlights outside, these used to be on Insteon modules that were little relay modules that had an input wire so that you could hook the input wire to the motion detector. Well, for those I installed little Shelly relays. Shelly's the name of the manufacturer. That little bitty small relays that have that input and a relay output, and you can turn these on again from here. And I configured these with a little A because they're automatic, so they'll come on automatically if there's motion detected on each of those floodlights. And then I just grouped some of the lights over here. They were exterior lighting, and you customize all this to look any way you want. One neat thing is this patio fan, light and fan. This is a integration that Home Assistant has for big ass fans. So I've got a fancy big ass fans i6 light on my patio. I worked at Big Ass Fans for about a year in their engineering design department, and anyway, I got that fan. It was a prototype because that was one of the fans I worked on designing. But anyway, it's its own specialized control, but Home Assistant is very good about having integrations for everything. So I assigned it an IP address using the Big Ass Fans app, and then I went in here and set it up. Here is the alarm control. So I mentioned that I put in this Invisalink module. So I'm reading out some alarm status stuff. This is just the two lines that display on the alarm panel. So I can, punch these buttons in, arm and disarm it if I want to. Here's the status of all the door sensors, window sensors. These garage door controls are not part of the alarm. I stuck them on this page, but this is actually a module that I have that you can push these buttons and open and close the 3 garage doors on the main level. And these sensors are not... actually, AC power is related to the Honeywell alarm system, but these others are other sensors that I've customized inside Home Assistant. I put all the motion sensors on one page here. So interior motion sensors and exterior motion sensors. One of the cool things, if you use the NVR, which is like the surveillance camera digital recorder that you can integrate into Home Assistant. One of the cool things about it is each camera can do more than just record video. It can actually detect things in the frame. It can detect motion on the camera. So these are like motion sensors, but they're actually just telling you whether or not these cameras, because there's, as you see, there's 6 cameras in the house. It's telling you whether or not those cameras see motion. The rest of these are motion detectors that are part of the Honeywell alarm system. Then out here we've got 8 outdoor cameras that are motion sensors, right? Because they act as motion sensors. And then these are the 7 floodlights that I told you were connected to those Shelly modules that are connected to the motion sensors. So these are PIR motion sensors on the floodlights. So I have that data on here too. So this is a thermostat page. I've not spent a ton of time playing with the thermostat on here and customizing it. I do have a Honeywell smart thermostat. You can see I've got two different thermostat interfaces on here. I really haven't spent a lot of time fooling around with it. I've customized a little bit of this and put the weather forecast on here and stuff like that. But this is just data that thermostat puts out, like the indoor temperature and humidity, outdoor temperature and humidity. Tells you whether or not the system's running. This is still images recorded from all the cameras. So you can look through here. One of the things that the NVR does, see there I am right here. I was just in there filming. I was in the playroom of the house filming for this video, and there it is. There I am. So this is just the most recent still image that's captured by all the cameras. So there's a delivery truck that came. The cameras detect vehicles, they detect people. It's pretty slick, actually. So the NVR system is called Frigate, and I'll show you that in a minute. But this is all the holiday lights. So those little plug-in modules, I have 8 of those. I just have them named plug module because they end up getting moved around and put wherever. These are switches that control the timers, so I can just turn the timers on and off. Like after Christmas, I can just turn these off, and then the automatic timing function doesn't work anymore. So there's all the indoor holiday lights, and then the outdoor holiday lights are all on one relay. This tab here just got some diagnostic stuff on it. But then Frigate is the NVR system, which, like I was mentioning, is super slick. You've got this bird's. So I actually have 14 cameras total. So you can scroll through them here and see them. So quite a few cameras. It's nighttime, so some of these are in night vision mode. There's this bird's eye mode that lets you see all of them at one time live. You can look at events, so it will tell you. See, my old camera. My old video camera system, it recorded on motion, and motion happened all the time. And the truth is, you really don't care if there's motion or not. You care if there's like a person. So I've set Frigate up to where if there's a person in the frame, then record it. So it's telling me, hey, look, I caught a person in all these different times. And this is me walking around the house making this video. So anyway, that's what all we're looking at here. Storage system config, other stuff on here that is not as important. So so this is very powerful, but I will warn you, if you're thinking about getting a Home Assistant, that it is not incredibly user friendly. It is, so compared to the Insteon hub that I had, it was very easy to set up and use. You could write programs. But it was pretty easy to use. Home Assistant is more for a little heavier duty hobbyist, home automation, enthusiast, if you will. Just like any software program or any device, the one that's more complex with more features is also more difficult and more steeper learning curve to understand. So there is some learning you have to do for this. I'm going to show you a couple of those things. So the automations are really not that bad. So if you go in here to the automations, so here's the list of all the automations that run in my house. So let's just say garage lights on with motion or doors is what I named this one. Okay. So what this says, so you've got 3 sections in every automation. You've got triggers, conditions, and actions. This one has no conditions, which means as those triggers happen, you get in the action. If there's motion in the garage, and that's motion from the Honeywell motion sensor that's connected to the alarm system. If the door from the house to the garage opens, that's what this one is, or any of the garage doors open, or the person occupancy in the garage is detected, and the person occupancy is based on the camera. There's a camera in the garage, so if that camera sees a person. So if any of these four things happen, we're going to turn on the garage lights. We're going to wait 5 minutes and turn them back off. So that's how these automations work. Let's see here. This master light switch is a pretty cool function. I really like this one. What this is I have one of those Martin Jerry Wi-Fi switches mounted. It's not really wired to anything, but I have programmed it. You can actually do some programming on the device itself, and I don't mean like in C language. You're just kind of like giving it some rules using its own browser interface when you go to its IP address, and I've set it to where, you know, if you push that button, it just sends a message to Home Assistant, and the messages are in this format called MQTT. If Home Assistant receives a particular message from that switch, it turns on like all the inside lights in the middle of the house. So it's really cool. And then and you'll notice on this one, this message is short, so it's a short press, turns everything on. And then I've got that same switch with a long press, turns all of them off, which is pretty cool. It's actually a neat feature. Exterior floodlights on from patio button. So again, I've got one of those Martin Jerry switches, dimmers, and those Martin Jerry dimmers really have 3 buttons. They have the paddle button to turn the light on and off. You just click it to turn it on, click it again to turn it off. Then there's an up and down button for controlling the brightness. Well, the neat thing about Tasmota is you can go in there and you can set up rules and you can reprogram what buttons do and stuff like that. So I've programmed the one by the patio to send an MQTT message to Home Assistant to tell it to turn the floodlights on. So like if me or one of my wife or one of my kids is going to walk our dog at night, we go out through the back patio. Well, you can just push this one button and then all the floodlights outside come on. It's actually very, very convenient. And then when you get back in, you push the bottom button, we'll turn them all off. And that's what this automation does right here. All right, so here's a notification. Here's an automation that does a notification if the vehicle driveway sensor detects somebody. I did another video about my vehicle driveway sensor that's underground. It's very slick. It sends a close contact signal whenever a vehicle is detected. If that sensor it detects something, or the car occupancy, which means it's using the video camera, detects a car, either one. This is an error message. I don't know what's up with that. I may need to delete that. And then if we're away, okay, or it's after 10 p.m. and before 7 a.m., which means at night, and we just don't want the chime to go off at night if somebody comes in late. Or I've got a little switch in here that says, hey, message me all the time no matter what. And if that's on. So this is a or, so if any of these happen, we'll send 2 text messages, one to me and one for my wife. So anyway, so this really does everything that the ISY did and more. It does so much more. There's also a very nice phone app that I subscribe to the company that runs the Home Assistant community or whatever is called Nabu Casa. They have a service where you can get off-site access. So I've set my computer up with my Nabu Casa account. It's very cheap. I don't remember what it costs, but it's not very expensive at all. There's a Home Assistant app. It's free. Everything's free. Home Assistant's free. The NVR, the frigate's free. All of it's free. Anyway, the app is very good. So I can see the video cameras in the app. I can do everything I can do on here from the app. I can even go into the automations if I want to. Okay, so I was mentioning that it's a little difficult to do. So the configuration of Home Assistant is not accomplished through a GUI, through a graphical user interface. There's actually like configuration files, which are big text files that are called YAML, Y-A-M-L. And you have to format them a certain way. You have to type in all the information. So there's really good documentation to explain how to do it all. But to configure Frigate, to configure Home Assistant, you got to enter all this text in to configure everything. That is not simple to do. It can be hard to debug if you have a problem in it. So Home Assistant is more of a power user type home automation system. Here's that light switch by my patio. So pushing the paddle button down here, turns the patio light off and back on. And then normally this increases the brightness and decreases the brightness. But as I said, I reconfigured this switch in Tasmota so that pushing this top one turns all the floodlights on outside. And pushing this bottom one turns them all back off, which is super convenient for when we walk the dog at night. One of the things I think is important is response time. So like a lot of my automations do things like turn a light on when a door opens, right? So like if you go out on the front porch, if the light's off and it's nighttime, the light comes on in the front porch. Same with the back patio. And like, for example, this is the door right here into my garage. And I'm going to show you just what the response time is. It's pretty fast. So if you think about it, this door is an input on that Honeywell alarm system. And so it's reporting the status of this door to that Invisalink module that is connected over the LAN to Home Assistant. And then Home Assistant sees that that door opened and it runs an automation to turn the light on out in the garage. So I'm going to show you just how quick the response is. Did you see that? I mean, you can't get much faster than that. All right, so I'm going to show you the same thing. This is my back patio door. And you can see right here on the wall, this is the light switch for the back patio. So I'm going to open the door and you'll see how quick it opens. You'll see how quick it responds. You see that? It's awfully fast. I'm pretty impressed with how fast it is. So I mentioned I've got my doorbell now. Not only does it chime like it used to, it also is hooked up to Home Assistant. And I've got an automation. I didn't show you in there on the computer, but I've got an automation that if I'm away from home and somebody rings the doorbell, I can get a text notification, which is pretty cool. I know that somebody's at my house. So I have very much glossed over the complexity in setting the system up. There's a lot to it, honestly. For example, I have multiple VLANs in my Wi-Fi network, so that all of those Shelly devices and Martin Jerry, all those different Tasmota devices that are on the local network don't have internet access, so they're locked out of the internet, but they have access to the Home Assistant computer server. So there's a lot there. So to do it, you really need to be a little bit of an IT person. You need to understand networks pretty good. I know that Home Assistant will also work with like Zigbee and Z-Wave devices, so you can just get a Zigbee or Z-Wave, module, plug into that computer that's running Home Assistant, and then you can use those protocols as well. So there's other ways to do it, and there's several really good YouTubers out there who have I've learned a ton from. So I'll put those links down in the notes to some of those other YouTubers that have helped me, because I couldn't figure all this out myself for sure. All right, so listen, thanks for watching my video. I hope it has helped you out a little bit. If you have an Insteon system now and you're thinking about converting, maybe you should think about going to Home Assistant. It's up to you, of course, but give it some thought. I did, and I like it. It's not perfect. It's still a little buggy, but for the most part, it's actually really good, and I'm super happy with it. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.